Let's make America great again. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's make the church great again. We've heard that, haven't we, over the years, especially us older folks, ever since about the mid-'60s, when things began to change in the church. We hear the people, let's get back to the way it was. You know, the golden years of the 50s and the 40s. Well, friends, they weren't golden years any more than these are. We've been listening to the history of the early Christians, the first Christians. Ever since Thursday, Holy Thursday, we've had the forming, reforming of the church around Jesus, the risen Lord. And what's the one thing that has predominated in the little church in all those days? Fear. Fear is everywhere in those readings. We started in the Garden of Gethsemane, did we not? And they all ran away because they were afraid. One man in Mark's gospel, they even grabbed him by his cloak and he left his cloak behind and ran away naked. He was so scared. And Peter, head of the church, in front of a little girl, lies that I don't know him, I don't know Jesus. And here they are today, behind locked doors, out of fear. Fear of the future, fear of what will happen to me. Well, I can identify with that, can't you? Don't you have your fears, your trepidations? Sometimes we need to examine, what are my fears? And how do I escape them? The first Christians had very few means of escaping their fears. They could run away, they could lie, they could get behind locked doors. We have all kinds of ways of getting away from our fears. We can do it electronically. We can live in a virtual world where there is nothing to worry about. We can create a virtual church where nothing threatens us. They had to run, they had to hide, they had to deny, but we have other means. But what is the only thing that took away the fears of our ancestors in the faith? The presence of the risen Lord. That's the only thing that did away with their fears and made them so brave and bold that they even died for him. They were martyred for him, many of them. But what about us? I can't see Jesus. I can't touch Jesus like Thomas did. You know, there's no proof that Jesus rose from the dead. You cannot prove it. But you can give witness to it. And that's what Jesus called Thomas and the others to, and that's what he called us to when he mentioned us in the end there about those who have not seen me and yet have believed, have become my witnesses in their own time. And that's what we're called to do. To be witnesses in our own time, in our own place, to our own contemporaries. But there's a vicious circle here, isn't there? Because if we're going to be the disciples of Jesus, if we're going to be his witnesses, we have to have come across witnesses to the risen Lord ourselves. We need witnesses in order to be witnesses. That's why Jesus, when he met with the little church on that first evening, breathed on them. Just like the Spirit of God breathed on creation and brought it to life in the first book of the Bible. He breathed on them and brought into existence the community of believers in which he dwells inwardly. In each individual and in the community of individuals. In order that we can be witnesses to each other and together be witnesses to our world. But in order to be witnesses, we have to do exactly what the early disciples did once they had been breathed on by Jesus and filled with his Spirit. They have had to stop hiding, and so do we.